Well, welcome to Teach Tech Theater Thursday, and we are glad to see you. I am Kirsten Branch.
And I am Julie Benitez.
And my background today is the Potiker Theater at the Jolla Playhouse, and we wanted to talk to you about the program that Julie and I started 6 years ago at the Jolla Playhouse, working with the Juvenile County and Court system. So I want to say maybe early spring, late winter, got a phone call from the Jolla Playhouse. Steve McCormick was the education and outreach director at that point, and he said, hey, the department's kind of come up with this really cool idea. We want to start to offer camps during the summer for tech theater, but we want to offer it for kids who are incarcerated. And what do you think? Like a week long, here's what tech theater is all about, and maybe kind of help to show them a little bit of a way to see a different world. And I said, yeah, that's great, but I can tell you that that's more than one person can do. So I said, let me talk to you about my good friend Julie Benitez, because we are sisters from another mister. And I said, I think we would be a very good package deal for you guys. And so that's how that whole thing kind of began. And Julie, do you have any more to add to that lovely experience? Like when I called you and said, hey.
Yeah, when I got the call from Kirsten, and I'm like, that sounds fantastic. That's the kind of stuff that we enjoy doing anyway. And anybody I can teach tech theater to, I'm all in. And working with Kirsten and working at the Jolla Playhouse, win-win-win.
Exactly. So we were an unknown entity, though, going in. I mean, some of the folks at the Jolla Playhouse knew both of us through our work with the San Diego Educational Theater Alliance. But for the most part, the question kind of became, I'm sorry, you're teaching who? And you're using power tools? So what are we going to do with these kids from 9 to 3 every day to kind of show them what tech theater is all about and to give them just a little bit of experience, hands-on activities every day? The Jolla Playhouse was on board right away with, let's bring in some folks that are doing this work within the Jolla Playhouse staff so that the kids can meet people who are working artists and see that this is a viable job. And then we had to meet with the principal of the Juvenile County and Court system, as well as talk to probation. And we had to show them we do this for a living. We teach kids, 50 kids often in one point, all in a room, how to use a chop saw, how to use power tools and such like that. And
we had to think in a different way. The students weren't allowed to have sharp objects, things that they could take back with them. We had to make sure we were counting everything at the end of each day. There was we had to go in and prove to the principal that we not only knew what we were doing, we could safely show them how to use it, and that the children weren't going to get hurt.
Right.
Using a chop saw.
Right. They couldn't hurt themselves, and then they couldn't hurt each other. And then part of the other thing too was that there was a protocol for, and kids are going to all be in a uniform. They're all going to be matching shirts and shoes and socks and all of that. And when they walk, they have to walk with their hands in their pockets. And that we would have several officers with them the entire time. And so there was just this whole list of things that we just had to kind of shift, because we knew the tech theater stuff. That was fine. That was like second nature to us. But then it put on this whole new lens of kind of rules and expectations. And I know for me anyway, the more that kind of stuff, well, they could do this or they could do that. So you got to keep that in mind. I'm thinking, holy smokes, who are these people that are going to be coming into this place? And what have I signed up for? But it ended up kind of not being that way at all. Our first year, we had 1 week of boys, ages, I think, 15 to 18.
I think so.
And the requirement for involvement with this was that they were handpicked by the officers that worked with them, and that they were 30 days or less to getting out. So they had to have earned their way to this program, to this, because this is a lot of freedom for these kids. I mean, they hop into a bus. They had to drive almost an hour, I think, from their location, Camp Barrett, to La Jolla in a van. They got a lot of freedoms with what it was that we were doing, and then got to go back.
And in fact, it was a very interesting thing that we had to train ourselves we couldn't say see you tomorrow.
Right.
We'll say we'll see you when we see you, because one, they may not come back. Something could happen. It happened on occasion or two of someone felt all full of themselves and then they got themselves into a fight and didn't come back. And they also didn't want to let people know that they were going to a location on multiple days.
Oh, and we learned that the first day when we sat down. I was like, okay, so here's what's going on this week. And in the back, there's an officer going, sorry. The boys came in and they were a little puffed up, I guess. You know, they were a little, but I think for everybody, it became pretty clear within probably that first day that this was something different that they'd never experienced before. We were just there to talk to them and to teach them and to be with them and laugh with them and connect with them. And once they kind of realized that this was something different and they didn't have to have that persona of whatever it was that when they were back at their location, it became a totally different group of humans. One of the things that Julie and I just never did, and I don't even think we talked about it, Julie, but we never asked why they were there or what their background was. And I don't think anybody ever said, you know, don't ask that question. I think we just didn't, you know, I didn't think I wanted to know.
It wasn't important to us teaching.
No, you know, why they're there is why they're there. And it was also interesting too for the officers to come in. And at first they were a little standoffish because they were kind of on guard, I guess, not in a bad way, but it was clear that they were there to watch what was happening and make sure that the kids were there and not screwing anything up. But we also saw a change in what happened with them in that they started to relax a little bit and connect with the kids on a different level as well. And that was amazing to see, that we were building not only relationships with us, but we were building relationships with the kids with each other, and then the kids with the officers that they interacted with on a daily basis. But it was just a whole different environment. And it was.
But it's the same transformative power of art. Yeah. It's what we would see as the years continued, and the parole officers would engage with the students in creating whatever it is we were creating. It's a shared experience. And when you have a shared experience, you have a community. There was a marked change in some of the officers. As they did the projects along with the students, it became a shared community, and they relaxed, as Kirsten said, and they also found an interest in theater. In fact, one of them, Hendo, ended up doing it at his church. He kept doing some of the things that we had taught. He took it to a further community.
Yeah, I think that was the amazing thing about that, was that it was something that continued on. I know that we had that first year. There was a guy that ended up getting hooked up with an internship or a local regional theater in town just because of involvement with that. And in talking with the folks at the Juvenile County Court system, the most amazing thing for me was that understanding of these are still kids. Now, they're kids that got caught doing something, but Julie, you and I had said, you know, these are our kids. These could be our students.
Absolutely.
And it just, through a fluke of whatever, they're incarcerated and our kids weren't. You could tell that there were a lot of them that just needed, and I think you even said this last year when we were talking about it, that their life is going this way and they just need something to go.
Yep.
And just give them a little push in a different direction. But these are not the hardened criminals that you see, you know, in the scared straight, whatever is going on. I mean, they knew that they had screwed up. They clearly had gotten caught, and they wanted, several of them would even say, man, I don't want to ever do this again. I'm never going back here. And one of the things that we were charged with was to show them there is a life in the arts outside of a world that maybe they know, or an environment that they know. So then our second year, we got Vanessa, who we're going to meet shortly. And she was our intern, who was also a technician. And that made a huge difference in what we were able to do. And I think that second year, right? We started with the incarcerated men, and then we ended up with incarcerated women, incarcerated girls, but the same parameters. Small group. I think the first year we had 7 or 8 boys, and the second year was about the same, 7 or 8 boys, and I think 5 or 6 girls.
And a shortened day.
And a shortened day for the girls. And the cool part, I think, that made the change for that second year was that the staff of the Playhouse saw what it was that we were doing, and it started to matter to them as well. Now, they're great in sports, and so somebody says you're going to go talk to kids for an hour about what you do, sure, they're going to do it. But I think that second year, people cared more about doing it. You could tell that when they would come in and hang out with the kids and talk to them, they wanted to connect with those kids. It wasn't like, when you're doing a presentation in front of a ton of people and you're kind of looking over everybody's heads and not really paying attention. These guys all came in to present to our kids, wanting to connect and wanting to ask questions about, do you understand, or do you see that how this could be a thing for a job? And that was when, I think for me, I felt like we were invited into the fold of the Playhouse and the Playhouse staff. You and I talked quite a bit about the fact that this was a summer gig. Yes, it was tiring. I mean, we'd leave our houses at 7 in the morning, carpool down there, and we'd be home by 7:30 at night, depending on traffic. But it was certainly a labor of love. And I know for me, it fed my soul because it was a chance to really show and create a community of theater for people that would have no reason to even know what that was.
And I also felt, part of the community of La Jolla Playhouse, and it invigorated my soul to meet other, we always end up being such islands of one. We don't get to interact with people. And here we were able to interact with professionals, and we mostly they were talking about what they were interested in, but mostly what I felt like my charge is to help translate what they just said, that it would be a little more understandable to the students, or to ask pertinent questions to help connect it with the students. Right. But to be able to go down, and as the years continued, we're going down to the paint shop, and we're learning techniques, or we're seeing little bits of whatever show is currently going on, and the process that for me as a theater practitioner fed my soul also.
Oh yeah. And it got to be kind of a groove that we all had, not just us with the interns, but with the La Jolla Playhouse staff as well, was really that a lot of the talks began to center on, well, we needed to do this for this show. We didn't know how to do that. So then we tried this, and we tried this, and then we tried that, and we tried that. And it ended up being really a conversation about how you just figure it out, and you screw it up, and then you figure it out even
fail
more.
And keep going.
Right. And for a lot of these kids, I think that was a real eye-opening thing, because I think with their experience, it had been, well, you screwed up,
right.
Don't ever do that again. And for us, it was the idea of, it's fine. The kids that would be painting something and they'd be like, oh, I messed it up. And I know that you'd walk over and go, it's just paint. And you wipe it right off, and let's do it again.
And they're like, oh. You're like, yeah, just do it again. It's fine.
So I think that was one of the gifts that La Jolla Playhouse gave to those kids, was that idea that you're not on the right path. You just got to stop and figure it out and go somewhere else. People started to realize also that these kids were hungry for positive attention, like the staff at the La Jolla Playhouse was able to give them. So much so that really people would just kind of pop in, see how we were doing, check on the kids, even when they didn't have to. And that was the blessing of it. And we all got a rapport with the officers and with the Playhouse staff. And they were always so accommodating,
Last year.
We had an older group. So most of them were in like 17, 18 range, and were really, the stakes were much higher for them getting out and choosing a correct path. And one of the guys who was a shop foreman for the local IATSE union offered to come in, and took his own time to come in and talk to them about what the union could offer them as a job, and how they could get work as a theater technician, and how they could get paid training to become a theater technician. I mean, we asked, but he didn't have to say yes, but he did, because the kids were interested in trying to find out a way to get work. So that to me, the fact that people were really willing to go out of their way to help us.
And a way that I think that the kids could feel it because people were coming in. But I remember we didn't do it for the first couple of years, but when at the end of the week, the kids have all of their projects lined up and we take pictures and stuff like that. And the last few years, the people who had taught them throughout the week came in and there was like a little presentation, or they were like, "Oh my gosh, look what you did. Like that's really amazing." And you could just see them puff up with pride. And what a better way to puff up than the way that they came in at the beginning of the week.
Right. And to know that when they were taking that stuff, the way that it works is that they're not allowed a lot of personal property where they are, but that the things that they made, they were asking, where is this going at the end? And when the officers would say it was going into your personal, so when they got let out, they could take it with them. The kids were like, oh, yeah. I mean, something as simple as a 9x12 flat that they had made and painted, or a foam donut that they had made. But the fact that that was not something they didn't want to just create that and then chuck it. It meant something to them. I think the experience more than any of that.
If you'd like to see what we did, a few things that we did in that first year, there's a video that's linked with our YouTube channel about our week and about some of the kids and what we did.
And that video was made by the County Office of Education. So the students that are in that video have clearance to be there. It wasn't just us going rogue. So we had our intern Vanessa for 2 years. And then on our third year, we ended up with another technician whose name was Grace. And that was our year, we call it our unicorn year, because that was the year that things really kind of started to coalesce into this well-oiled machine. And Vanessa, having 3 years under her belt, really didn't look at her as an intern. She was just part of it was this triad. And then in comes this new person, Grace, who was also a technician. And Grace fit in so well with all of us that immediately then it became the four of us as this cohesive unit. And that was the year we added on the public. So it became part of the YPW program through La Jolla Playhouse. So anybody could sign up for a week of camp. And in addition to that, we also did not only the boys with JCCS, so the incarcerated boys and the incarcerated girls, and then we had a week of the Monarch program, which was the homeless youth. So we were up to four weeks at that point, and then we also did some Girl Scout workshops. So the program was getting pretty big, which is lovely because that meant people liked us. Who doesn't want to be liked? But it was one of those years where there was so much and there was new stuff and how are we going to make this happen? So Team Unicorn just kind of happened. And it just seemed to be one of those years where everything clicked together. And it was the folks that came in and talked, and it was a great season as far as La Jolla Playhouse summer went. And all of the groups, I think, had an opportunity to go see a show, which was another cool part, that La Jolla Playhouse scholarshiped the entire group of kids. So they got to be with us the whole week, meet some of the folks that were working behind the scenes. And then as a culmination of that week, actually got to go see a play. For most of them, the first time they had ever been to a play in their lives, ever been to a theater in their lives. That to me, I think, is another part of that, just a connection of something. And do you remember, Julie, this last year we had one of the actors come in. From Get Your House.
He came in. He was from Chicago, and he came in and he was talking to the kids about people of color in the theater and how he had to struggle to get where he was, how he ended up writing his own stuff, and just his whole arc.
And talking about what the world is like in TV and film and all of that. I mean, he'd done a lot of it, and the kids just connected with him in just about an hour of them talking back and forth about what it is like to be, a person of color and a person judged. Certainly that was not a conversation I was going to have with them at all, but he was so earnest. And then that Friday, I think it was Friday night, the last day of the camp, they got to go out to dinner at a restaurant, which was huge for them to be able to go out to a restaurant and then come back and sit in an audience at the La Jolla, to sit at the audience at the La Jolla Playhouse and see a play. And at curtain call, we weren't there, but we heard about this from one of the officers, that the boys stood up and applauded, and the actor that had just spoken to them did one of those like, hey, saw them standing and recognized them, and there was that connection of them in the audience. And that's the stuff that's why we do what we do. That's why we spend our summer at the Jolla Playhouse, and we're tired as hell at the end, but it's
but it feeds our souls.
It's for stuff like that. So we wanted to have you guys meet our Team Unicorn folks.
We
are
Team Unicorn.
Yay! So Team Unicorn back again. Hello, hello, hello. All right. So we want to have Vanessa and Grace talk about their experience. So Vanessa, just by seniority, you get to start first. So tell us who you are, where you come from, how you got involved, and a little bit about your experience, because you were there our second, third, and fourth year.
Fourth year, yeah.
Right. And then Grace overlapped with the fourth year and then was there year 5. So go ahead and take it away, Vanessa.
Great. So I'm Vanessa Beal, and I graduated from Wagner College with a design technology and management major. And I am currently an MFA candidate at Columbia University for their speech management program. I knew that I was going to come home, and I still wanted to do something in theater. And I was looking at the Old Globe and La Jolla Playhouse and some of the other theaters here. And the one that really interested me the most was La Jolla. And the education program reached out to me, and they were like, we're doing this camp that's tech for kids. And I went, great. So I did it that first year and fell in love with Julie and Kirsten and the program and the Playhouse. And I just kept coming back for my entire college career, basically.
Excellent. And Grace, what about you? Tell us a little bit about you and your life, etc.
So I'm Grace Lehman. I just graduated from Concordia University, Irvine with a theater major, emphasis in design and technical production. The summer after my sophomore year of college, I applied at La Jolla. I think it was the only place I applied for an internship, and was reached out to by the education department. And they were like, we have a tech camp. And so I said, whoa, we're going to do this. And so, like Vanessa, I came back for a second year. Wish I had a third, but you know. So it was just amazing. And
so Vanessa, tell us a little bit about your feelings when you first heard that we were going to be dealing with incarcerated youth that first year.
Yeah, so I found out probably the day before we started, and I went and talked to my uncle about it, who's the cop here in San Diego. And I was like, should I be worried about what I'm doing here? And it's like, I think you'll be perfectly fine. There will be officers there. I'm sure that they are kids that are on their way out or haven't done anything completely terrible in order to be at such a prestigious theater. And he told me to just treat them like human beings, to treat them like any other kid, because that's really what they are. They're just another group of kids. And that's what I did. And it's really the most helpful thing when working in this program.
And Grace, what did you think when you found out?
well, I guess I had a little bit more warning. I had about a week or some, and I learned from Vanessa. She had talked to me about it. And it was a little shocking at first because I did not expect that. I was just, and then also a little terrified and intimidated just because I didn't know. I was like, what did I get myself into? But soon after, she was like, oh, no, there's officers in the room. And she shared about the amazing experiences that she had had through that. And so it was a little less nerve-wracking. And then as soon as we worked with the kids and got through a week, I was like, oh, we're good. This is fine.
So Vanessa, I'll kick it back to you. Do you have an event or a time when you were, there was like an aha moment or a really cool moment that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I actually pulled up my notebook from when I was journaling throughout my 3 years. And I wrote down a bunch of quotes from the boys. And one of the quotes that really stood out to me was that first year. Yeah. No, just kidding. It was the second year. And one of the kids wrote, Tiago wrote, maybe one of us kids might learn something new that would open a new door for our lives. Just imagine a kid that is bound to be locked up for life, but that course changes just because he met a puppeteer or found out how to scumble. He maybe found his new passion, something he loves more than committing crime. And I remember reading that and like crying. And these moments happen so often during these weeks. And that was my favorite part of the whole thing.
Grace, what about you?
Well, yes, I believe the write-ups were amazing. But one moment that stuck out to me was we were in our sound unit, and there was this gentleman that he just got so into it. And he was just like, I think this is something that I'd be interested with. And he talked and stayed with the technician and asked so many questions and actually seemed like he wanted to and was willing to do that. And just to see that happen, it was just so amazing. But really just like, I didn't know how much they would be able to like be receptive to the tech, because it's kind of something that is very particular, but to see somebody actually enjoy it enough to consider it was amazing to see.
I think that often people who end up doing theater in high school, it's a kind of a privileged thing. People wouldn't have just jumped into that, or they wouldn't have thought that that was something that they would be interested in. And to be able to take these kids who maybe even poo-pooed theater to go, oh, like this is something that I could do for a living and make more than I was working at McDonald's or anything else, and the creativity that's involved in technical theater, and for them to see failure happens all the time in theater. It's part of the learning process, and for them to see that just because we've made a mistake doesn't mean that we give up, that we try again and we try again and we try again until we figure out the right way to do it. And I think it's just a beautiful way for them to see that, and that their lives can change.
I remember that first year we were teaching the girls how to paint, and one of them hated what she painted. And Julie was like, you just paint over it. We can start over. Just paint over it again. She was like, we can do that? She was like, yeah, you just paint over it. Problem solved. She was amazed.
So what about the experience working with the officers and such? I know that Julie and I talked about before you guys joined us just how cool it was that they started to get excited and that they started to get involved with the projects that we were doing. What did you see as far as the kids and working with the officers, et cetera? How did you see relationships? That's kind of what we're focusing on.
I don't know. I thought it was really interesting seeing their lunchtime, because it was when the officer would then kind of take charge. And I know one year they bought food for them every single day instead of bringing it. And I thought that was just amazing, because it made a bond with the officer. And I think it helped them respect the officer, but then also helped the officer be able to help them out and treat them and continue that process, to commit to the fact that they're not in the detention center or whatever it is, that they were at the Playhouse, and that they were being treated like they were not there, and that they were also in a privileged area. So the officers treated them with that same regard. And I thought that was really cool to see. And also the officers were so willing to just go along with it. And I'm sure you talked about it, how like throughout the week as it went on, that they got more and more involved, but they would joke around appropriately and everything. And it was really fun.
I remember Officer G the most, maybe because she was the one continuously throughout my 3 years. But something I really admired and took from her specifically was her relationship with the girls, and how it was authoritative, but she wasn't overbearing. Like, she was still friendly with the kids, and there was a mutual respect. And that's something that when I stage manage, I take part of Officer G with me to try to do that with my cast as well.
Yeah, Officer G was the main officer that was a pretty big proponent of what we were doing, and so she was there from the start with all of us, and was just a huge she actually got one of the other facilities to join us last year, so we added on another week because of her recommendation for the program. So she was just one of those amazing people that would lead with a loving but iron hand. I mean,
yes,
they all knew
very,
they couldn't
a
get
very
away with
strong
anything.
mother bear.
Yes. Yes, and they all knew that she had their back, but she wasn't going to put up with anything either. So she held them to a very high standard. And I would say out of the 5 years that we did this, 90% of the kids stayed at that higher standard. And I think that says a lot. And we had talked about the recidivism rate, I think last year with her, and out of the 4 years that we had, there were only 2 kids that ended up getting locked up again. We're not certainly going to take all the credit for that, but I think they were headed in a direction where they knew they didn't want to go. And so we were able to hopefully give them maybe another option, or just see that there's more to life than what they had. And so they were able to then move in a different direction. This is Team Unicorn, and with the stars aligned for us to be able to work with some amazing folks throughout all of our time together. But as a testament to how fabulous these ladies are, we this year, obviously with Shmarona, we have not been able to offer our summer programs, but the program has grown so much that it's bigger than Julie and I. And actually this year, Grace and Vanessa were going to take 2 of the weeks themselves, which is a testament then to how fabulous they are, that they've been around it enough that Julie and I feel confident that here was our baby. Now you take it and make it yours and fly. And so that was, I think, one of the best things that we could say about these 2 fabulous people.
Absolutely. Both of them coming in knowing, when we first met Vanessa in that first year, already realizing that she was a technician and thinking with that technician brain. The way that Kirsten and I kind of worked together, there's kind of a yin and a yang. And Vanessa was able to kind of like squish herself in between that. And we realized quickly that we could give her more and more responsibility until it was kind of the 3 of us, and we were just being able to tag team. And then when Grace came in, she was able, a testament to Grace, she was able to find a way to fit in so that at the end of our Team Unicorn year, there was a day that all 4 of us were teaching independently of each other, and felt completely secure that the 2 of them were totally, they were right up there at the same level and caliber that we were, which is why we thought for sure they would be great in teaching this year, which unfortunately isn't happening.
Yeah.
Well, that last year, that unicorn year was crazy because that last day, we kind of ended up splitting the group into like an advanced group and the normal group.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all like crazy dozy going, as we say. So that was like probably the most intense. And correct me if I'm wrong,
didn't the 2 of you take the advanced groups?
Yeah, we made sushi.
Right.
That's
well,
right.
You guys took the advanced and we took the beginners.
All of the years have been blessed in their own way, but that was just one of those years when everything just coalesced into Team Unicorn.
Well, just like, I don't know, thanks for this opportunity, like for making it how amazing it was. It was great, and you all were a huge part of that, and it'll happen again.
It will.
It will. It will. Yeah.
And to tag on what Grace said, I mean, you 2 are great together, and at least I don't want to speak for Grace, but at least for me, the reason I kept coming back was because of you 2, because you guys are great.
Completely.
Team. And that's in the cleaner.
That is us indeed.
That is.
Indeed. Okay, ladies, thank you so much. On behalf of Team Unicorn, Grace and Vanessa, can you see why they are so amazing? We can. Yep.
We totally can.
So we're going to say goodbye. So everybody wave.
Bye. Bye.
So we want to thank Grace and Vanessa for taking the time to chat with us. They're such lovely folks, and we love them to death. They will always be part of, I think, our tribe forever and ever and ever.
Forever and ever.
And we want to thank you and thank La Jolla Playhouse, because they are the visionaries that created this program. Yesterday would have started year 6 for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to try some stuff this summer and see how it works online. And we're excited about that, but can't wait to get back and do what we do. So if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, or just tech theater in general, or teaching, please feel free to contact us. We are at teachtechtheater@gmail.com, or check out our website at www.teachtechtheater.org. We also have this YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Tell other folks about us. We're here to help the overwhelmed teacher. We're here to help the teacher that wants to take their tech game to the next level. And that's what we have a heart for, is teaching and helping people. So thank you for watching.
Thank you.